Hi, everyone. Welcome to Yuanyu Perspectives, where we explore quirky ideas through the lens of law, economics, and sometimes ghosts. Today's episode is called How Much is a Ghost Worth? And no, we're not talking about Halloween decorations. We're diving into a real-life story from Hong Kong's housing market and how ghosts, yes, actual haunted apartments, tell us something important about economics and law. Let's get into it. Back in 2013, the Wall Street Journal reported a pretty spooky trend. In Hong Kong, a place known for strong beliefs in ghosts and feng shui, apartments where someone had died under unusual or tragic circumstances are called haunted houses. Normally, these haunted places are much cheaper than regular homes, sometimes 40% off. But here's the twist. As the real estate market in Hong Kong boomed, even haunted homes were getting expensive. In some cases, the price difference between haunted and regular apartments shrank to just 5%. That's right. People were willing to pay almost full price to live with a ghost. Why would that happen? Let's break it down. Imagine you're trying to buy an apartment and someone says, "Oh, by the way, a ghost comes with it." Most people will be like, "No thanks." But when housing gets super expensive and people are desperate for a place to live, that ghost starts to seem like less of a problem. So the ghost discount starts to disappear. Here's where economics kicks in. There's this cool idea from economist Ronald Coase called the Coase theorem. It says, if people can clearly define ownership and negotiate, the market will figure things out. In the case of haunted houses, the ghost is like a hidden cost. It makes the apartment feel less comfortable. But when housing is scarce, people are willing to accept more discomfort to get a roof over their head. It's not really about ghosts. It's about how people value things when options are limited. Now here's a fun thought. Can we actually put a price tag on a ghost? Well, if a haunted house used to be worth 40% less than a regular one, that 40% is kind of like the cost of living with a ghost. So if an apartment is worth 10 million Hong Kong dollars, and being haunted makes it worth only $6 million, that ghost costs $4 million. That's a pricey ghost. But now, if the price gap drops to just 5%, the ghost value has dropped big time. In a booming market, even ghosts can't keep prices down. Poor ghosts, they become inflation's latest victims. Let's shift gears to something called tying or bundling. This is where a company forces you to buy one thing in order to get something else. For example, what if I told you I'm selling the best coffee in the world, but you can only buy it if I also give you a dose of rat poison? Sounds ridiculous, right? But this is actually a common legal and economic discussion. Some people think tying lets big companies push unwanted stuff on customers. But others argue, if what you're adding is unwanted, it doesn't make the product better, it makes it worse. In fact, it lowers your profit because customers start walking away. So when we say selling a house with a ghost, it's kind of like bundling the house with something the buyer doesn't want. If the ghost lowers a house's value, that's just how markets react. No need for the government to get involved. One famous real-life example is the Microsoft Internet Explorer case. Back in the late 90s, Microsoft was adding its web browser, Internet Explorer, to Windows for free. Some said it was unfair because it made it harder for other browsers like Netscape to compete. But here's the thing. At the time, Internet Explorer wasn't bad. Some reviewers even liked it better than Netscape. And if Microsoft was giving it away for free, that's good for consumers, right? Unless IE was actually hurting users, there wasn't really a problem. If it was helpful, cool. And if not, people could just ignore it and download another browser. No harm done. Now back to the ghost stuff and how it connects with nature. Another famous example comes from bees and apple farmers. In Washington state, farmers need bees to pollinate trees. But who pays whom? The traditional idea is that one party is taking advantage of the other, and the government should step in. But economist Stephen Chung visited real farms and found something different. In the real world, farmers and beekeepers make deals. Sometimes farmers pay beekeepers for pollination. Sometimes beekeepers pay farmers for access to flowers. It depends on the crop, the season, and how much honey is produced. Real life is complicated, and people figure out without government help. So what's the big takeaway? Whether it's ghosts in Hong Kong or browsers in Windows, the market is smarter than we think. When people are allowed to trade freely and make deals, they usually find solutions at work, even if those solutions seem weird or spooky at first. Antitrust laws and government rules should be careful not to fix problems that the market is already solving. And sometimes what looks like a big bad ghost is just supply and demand at work. Thanks for tuning in to Yuanyu Perspectives. If you liked this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who loves weird economics as much as you do. See you next time.